And good afternoon, everybody. I think we're just about ready to get started. Got a few people signing on here. So we'll go ahead and get our introductions out of the way. So I'm Daniel Brown, editor of Digital Signage Today, also an advisory board member for the ICXA Association. And we're here to talk a little bit about cloud-based digital signage and the rise of Google. As cloud-based digital signage grows in popularity, in no small measure because of its flexibility and affordability, Google's footprint has been growing in the digital signage world thanks to ChromeOS Flex, a cloud-focused operating system designed to work across PCs of varying age and hardware specifications. With the rise of players that leverage Google ChromeOS Flex, including the Advantech DS 410, and after years of cloud versus player debates, could it be that an ecosystem's approach allows the best of both worlds? And how does Google build privacy and security into their cloud-based OS ecosystem? We've got two representatives here to answer those questions and more today. Peter Freudenberger is the Global Customer and Partner Sales Engineer Lead for ChromeOS Flex. He helped launch the predecessor to ChromeOS Flex, Cloud Ready, in 2015, and has been helping organizations globally to grow with ChromeOS ever since. Peter has over 15 years of enterprise IT experience and a decade of experience with deploying ChromeOS at scale in both educational and enterprise environments. He originally hails from Australia and is based in New York City. We've also got Ryan Nieto, and welcome, Peter. We've got Ryan Nieto, who serves as digital signage product manager at Advantech. He's responsible for driving innovation and delivering cutting-edge solutions to meet the evolving needs of the industry. With a deep understanding of customer requirements and market trends, Ryan plays a pivotal role in developing and optimizing the Advantech digital signage product portfolio. His passion for technology, combined with his strategic mindset, enables him to bridge the gap between customer demands and technological advancements. And I'm going to actually hand the mic over to Ryan. I'm very excited to hear more about this product. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Daniel, for that introduction. All right, let's dive into it, y'all. So I have to tab in. I'm sorry about that. All right, so today, like Daniel introduced us, my name is Ryan Nieto. I'm a digital signage product manager here at Advantech, and I'll be going into why Advantech's digital signage, right? So before I really dive into that, I just wanted to give you guys a quick fly through of Advantech. We may not be the biggest, so if you guys haven't heard of us before, I'm just gonna quickly go over all of this, right? There's a lot of information on this screen. So Advantech, who we are. So we were founded 40 years ago, so we're actually celebrating our 40th year anniversary this year. And some other things to note. So in that middle column at the very top, we actually have 38% of the market share in the IPC world. So even if we may not be the biggest name out there, we do have the majority share of IPC, the IPC market share. So going from that, so we do a lot of business globally, right? So we're not just here in North America, but we're all over the world. So we have worldwide offices. We have over 8,500 employees. And something that I really want to dive in today, right, with this digital signage webinar is our digital signage product line, right? So bottom left here, we have over 2,000 standard product offerings. So that be motherboards, modules, and so on, right? So we do a lot. We also have ODM capabilities as well. So enough about that, right? So going into digital signage, right? So what do we want to do with that as Advantech? So our mission statement at Advantech, you can see it here at the top left, is to enable an intelligent planet. And the way that we're going to do that in the digital signage sector is, smart city, right? So today, right, 2023, there are screens everywhere. Digital signage is here to stay. And like I mentioned, we have offices all over the world. We do business all over the world. So not just in North America, but in Europe, in Asia. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this screen, but we do a lot of business, right, outside of North America. And just to give you guys a little picture, so some major cities, right, that have tons of screens. So we have Piccadilly on their top left. Top right, we have Shibuya Crossing. My goal the end of this year, early next year, is to actually go to Japan and see all that for myself. And then bottom left, I hail from Los Angeles, right? I'm from downtown, and it's crazy to see the amount of screens, like even the ones that like curve around this building here, insane. And of course, Times Square, New York, right? Every single one of these cities and other cities as well, all over the world, are adopting more and more digital signage. So what does that mean for the markets, right? So the market applications that Advantech is really focusing on, so we have three. So we have outdoor signage. So think, bus stops, kiosks, wayfinding. We have hospitality as well. So think hotels, those sign-in screens, the kiosks for that, and those little brief overviews whenever you go into a hotel, like this is today's weather. You can find your company meeting in this ballroom, things of that nature. And then lastly, QSR restaurants, so quick service restaurants. So think of your McDonald's, think of your Arby's, think of your Burger King, think of your, for our Canadian friends, Tim Hortons, right? Timmy's, all those different QSR restaurants, they have digital menus now. You have drive-thrus, you have ordering kiosks. You don't even have to talk to, a worker. You just boom, 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 and you're done. You get your order, you get your food, you pay, you get out, right? So in every single one of these applications, digital signage is becoming more, right? So for example, outdoor signage, wayfinding, there's actually a kiosk in a local shopping center that I frequent where when you click on a store that you want to go to, say for example, Foot Locker, it won't just show you where Foot Locker is on a map. It will show you like a step-by-step, like Google's map application, how to get there, right? And then hospitality. We've been getting a lot more inquiries for hospitality, so hotels, to really drive more smart signage, right? So it's not just, hey, this is the weather for today. This is, this is our hotel. This is our, the restaurants we have. Don't forget to check out the gift shop. But it's more like, hey, today's a nice day. Go check out, this, river kayaking activity that we have nearby. These are the deals, stuff like that. And then QSR, there's a lot more AI-based activity going to QSR restaurants. So you would think it was just like, you just get your burger and fries and you get out. But now those QSR customers are coming to us saying, hey, we want to do AI-based analytics, right? We want to see how long a customer is looking at the promotional items, the video. We want to see, depending on the weather, what people are ordering. We want to see the traffic patterns, in our drive-through and how long it takes, and do all the, the AI analytics that come with that. So gone are the days where traditional signage, digital signage is just, oh, we have a 1080 screen and we have our nice, pretty menu, or we have 4K. All of our customers, and the trend now in all three of these, right, is the digital signage needs to do more. It needs to have more functionality. It needs to provide some level of, smart applications, AI, all those things that we just talked about. So now going into a quick little case study. This kiosk may seem familiar, but because of the NDA, let's not really mention that. So one of the customers that we're engaged with today is a very big Canadian QSR restaurant, right? So we're doing their ordering kiosks. So the product, which I will go into in the next couple of slides, is our DS85. So what does an ordering kiosk do, right? So basically you go in, you order your meal, and you're able to do that whole process without having to talk to anybody. So some quick facts about this project. So hundreds of DS85s already deployed across stores in Toronto, Canada. So I would say about 2 or 3 units are in each store. And the nice thing is they're already using our previous model in our DS081. So the nice thing about the DS81 to our current platform, or DS85, is that they're in the same chassis, right? So the customer is already happy with that unit, and they just want, what's the latest product offering, which is our DS85. And the nice thing is it's the same chassis, so there's no reworking the kiosk. There's no need to having to rewire the HDMIs and those cables. You just take that one out, put the new one in, and you're good to go, right? And something to know, again, because we're an IPC company diving into digital signage, you have that same level of product longevity, that support that our IPC customers get in those, embedded products that we have. So, and these units in this customer, in their kiosks, have been in the field for the last 5 years. And their policy is just to update it every 5 years, even if they're running strong, right? Even if there's no problems whatsoever, they're replacing it. So that way they don't have to worry about it in the future, right? Just future proofing. So Now going into a little bit of our products, I know I'm not going to bore all of you guys to death with just spec and all that, but maybe just a little bit, right? So this is our entry-level player. This is our DS410. So some things to note here, the CPU is an Intel Celeron J6412 CPU. It has two outputs, right? So we have an HDMI that's capable of 4K and a VGA capable of 1080p. So some of our customers have some legacy screens that they're still using that use VGA. So this is the application for them. And we also have an upcoming product, which is in the DS411, a little sidebar here, which is basically the same thing as this 410, but just two HDMIs, right? And the product that I was talking about previously in that case study is our DS85. So this is our more mainstream player. So this uses the 10th gen Intel CPU, so Tiger Lake platform. And we have CPU offerings from the Celeron CPU all the way up to the i7. So dependent on your application and the kind of horsepower you need out of your system, we probably have it, right, from that Celeron i7 range. And something to note here is that it has 4 HDMIs. So if your application calls for more screens, more outputs, we have it, right? And each one of these HDMIs are capable of 4K. So I'm kind of blazing through it here. So why Advantech DS Players, right? So like I mentioned, we're an IPC company, right? So we have that Advantech value built into our DS players. So we really have that product longevity where you don't have to worry about, introducing a new product every single year. So something that we noticed a lot with the customers that come to us is they're using a lot of commercial products, right? So a lot of our competitors, so for example, Dell, Intel, NUC, right? Our customers will come to us and say like, hey, we don't want to recertify every single year because these life cycle on the consumer products are maybe 1 to 2 years max, and they're having to re-up on a new system, put more time into testing, the money into recertifying and all that. So that was one of our biggest pain points that we see with our customers is that product longevity. So with our players, like I mentioned, again, we have that life cycle. We have like a 5-year life cycle on our DS players, and we can extend that, with 2 to 3 years. So if you really want to just buy one player and you're in it for about 8 years, you'll be good with us, right? And another thing too is our localized support. So say you're a customer and you're purchasing a DS410 or DS85 with us, with Advantech. I would be your first, or sales would be your first point of contact, but then sales would reach out to me like, hey, we need a DS410 for this application. Can you spec it out? I would be there supporting you all along from your new product introduction to the end of life cycle. So you'll have my support, sales support. We have our application engineers local to here in our office that we're in Irvine, California. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And we have our RMA team and all that. So any issue that you have on the hardware side of the Advantech player will be there in lockstep with you to cover all your needs. And again, going back to our products in our DS410 and the DS85. So with those two products, we believe we cover, a multitude of digital signage applications. So our DS410, if you're looking for more of a cost competitive setup, we have the DS410, where if you just want to get up and running, that would be the system for you. Still capable of 4K, still capable of 2 outputs, right? But say if your application, your customer's application requires a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more screens, 3 or 4 screens, that's where the DS85 would come in, right? And dependent on, again, the application, we have different CPUs, and one listed here, the photo here, in the i7, we have a bigger chassis. I forgot to mention in the other slides, but the DS systems here, the DS410 and the DS85 are fanless. So you don't have to worry about fans getting gunked up with dust and all that. You just have to, make sure it has the proper airflow, which doesn't need much. I think it's 0.8 millimeters of airflow, and you'll be good to go, right? Last thing I want to mention is our less than 1% failure rate across the product line of digital signage, right? So what this means is once you have it deployed, you don't really have to worry about it. It's more than likely not going to fail in the field. And tying it all in, right, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague at Google soon. We're ChromeOS certified on both the devices. And I will be handing it now to Peter to talk a little bit more about that ChromeOS. Thank you, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Just to recap, my name is Peter. I am from the Google ChromeOS team, and I specialize in our product called ChromeOS Flex, which is a lightweight cloud-based operating system that's designed to run on really any hardware that's used in this industry. So I wanted to sort of start by taking a couple of steps back. Google is obviously a very large organization. We are in 500 of the Fortune 500, and we operate in a whole bunch of different industries. And that puts us in a really interesting position to be able to see what's going on in a lot of different segments of the market, especially kiosk and signage. Next slide, please. So one of the things we've seen, and I'm using an example of retail here, but it really applies to almost every industry that involves some sort of kiosk or some sort of digital signage, is that certainly for myself, when we were living in the 2020 to 2022 kind of period, we started doing everything from our couch or from our bed or from our work from home setup. And I think a lot of us, even at Google, assumed that was the way the world was going to be. Retail was dead. We've all been hearing that for years. In-office experiences are dead. And everything was going to be just driven from a mobile device or a laptop. What's really interesting is that at a global level, the opposite has proved to be true over the last 18 months. What we've really seen of whether it's QSRs, whether it's traditional retail, whether it's in-office experiences, the kind of bounce back from COVID has actually been that the expectation for rich digital experiences has become greater than it ever has before. People want to go to a mall or to a store, or even to their office, and be informed. They want to be entertained. And what's fundamentally driving that all is technology. And so there's this incredibly increased demand for contextual, rich, smart, and always available experiences in all these traditional spaces that we didn't see them in before. You know, one of the most clear examples is you see like the pervasiveness of self-checkout technology of the past few years. These very old school, very traditional environments, all of a sudden are going all in on digital displays, on corporate signage, on space navigation and wayfinding, all sorts of different use cases that leverage these types of technologies. And that's borne out in consumer expectations. One interesting stat that I always like to quote is not only now, you know, it seems like a few years ago that self-checkout was a novelty or maybe an inconvenience. And now having some sort of a digital component and some sort of a self-service component, whether it's paying for something at a kiosk, whether it's being informed about product features using some type of signage, that's not just incidental now, it's something that consumers fundamentally expect. And so that's not just something that's being driven by IT at our customers, it's something that is really a market expectation going forward. So what Google has also seen is at the same time as we've had all this unprecedented demand for more sophistication, more screens, more kiosks in all these different spaces, is that this kind of very traditional approach to the software that runs on these devices just doesn't keep up. You think about your traditional Windows-based stack. You have the operating system itself, it's enrolled in Active Directory. You then have some sort of antivirus or anti-malware product. You then might have some sort of extended endpoint response and detection software. Then you have remote access. Then you have policy monitoring and enforcement. And you have this whole huge stack of complexity, also that you can have a sign or a kiosk that runs reliably and displays content reliably. And that sometimes works. But oftentimes, especially when you're just playing the percentage games in these very technology-rich environments, sometimes things completely fall apart, and that can be pretty embarrassing for brands and for organizations. I think we've all seen this before, right? I was just at an airport yesterday and saw a version of this when I was trying to figure out where my flight was going. There are Windows updates waiting to apply, message right over seeing what my gate was supposed to be. And these things are kind of funny when you see them, but when you're trying to get somewhere, or you're trying to make a purchase, or you're just trying to be informed about a product or a city or a location, these are super disruptive, and they really are quite damaging to brands. I mean, nobody wants to see their high-priced consumer brand or their airport or their hospital displaying the classic Windows blue screen of death. And so that brings us to ChromeOS. And so what ChromeOS fundamentally is super simple. Google looked at the operating system market about 10 years ago and we went back to the drawing board, started with a clean sheet of paper, and redesigned what an operating system is supposed to be from the ground up with kind of no legacy dependencies and really looking to what technology and user experiences and the world is going to look like over the next couple of decades. And so the fundamental building block that we designed all of ChromeOS around is this idea of the cloud, that this traditional on-prem world where you have a server room with a bunch of dusty boxes in it in the back of your store or facility that manages everything, that's gone. You know, we already see that you don't have to have a server in your house for your smartphone. Like that seems crazy and silly. So why do you still need to have a server in the back of a retail store or of an office to run your digital signage or your kiosks? So we engineered ChromeOS from the ground up to be completely managed from the cloud and have all of its content delivered via web standards through the browser. So ChromeOS is essentially very simple. It's a very secure cloud-managed operating system where the only application running on the device is effectively the browser. So everything that is presented or that the user sees and does on ChromeOS is essentially HTML or browser content. And what you get with that, because the operating system is doing so much less from an application standpoint, it's a lot more secure by default. On ChromeOS, there are no admin users, there are no services, there are no background services, there are no agents running on the system. So that cloud-based approach allowed us to build an OS that's super secure. And also, I described that kind of layer of all this complexity that any Windows device has on it. That also makes it super affordable because you're stripping out all these different layers of the software stack that you need running on a Windows PC. And so ChromeOS just has a single license. It's about $25 a year, and that's it. There's no hidden costs. There's no additional management layers or third-party software that's needed. You just have the OS and you have the management fee. And then you're free to run, whether you use a Signage CMS or some sort of a custom-made kiosk application, you're free to run whatever application on top of that OS that you want. And then one of the things that we're really excited about is Google is really in the business of making an amazing OS. That's what we know how to do. That's what we're focused on. We're not really interested in getting into the hardware game, especially when it comes to things like kiosks and signage. It's an incredibly complex industry. It has players that have been in it for a very long time, like Advantech. And organizations like Advantech are the absolute experts in how to engineer something for challenging thermal environments, for very physically damaging or rough kind of environments like retail stores or industrial facilities. Google is focused on leaving the hardware design and implementation to the experts like Advantech, and then focusing on delivering an amazing, really secure operating system experience on that hardware. And so to finish out, ChromeOS was officially only available on Chromebooks. You might have seen those in schools or Chromeboxes. But we have our product now called ChromeOS Flex, which is really designed to expand the range of hardware that Chrome can run on and make it more flexible. The purpose is in the name. Next slide, please. So to go into a little more detail on some of those points that I mentioned earlier, one of the advantages of having an OS that's built from the ground up to be simple and reliable is there's just not as much maintenance to do on a device that's running ChromeOS. ChromeOS updates are instant. They happen once a month. They're completely invisible. And they're just transparent to the user or to the use case. With a kiosk or a sign, you might do a reboot once a month at midnight. And an update literally takes less than 5 seconds to apply. It really is basically an instant process. And that really gets around one of the things we've seen with the failure case for Windows devices in a signage or a kiosk context, where you've got that applying Windows updates thing that gets stuck sometimes for hours and hours. And also ChromeOS, I'll get into a little more detail on this, but everything on ChromeOS is encrypted all the time by default. There's no way to turn it off. And because there are no admin users, no third-party agents or software that can run on the device, it's an extremely secure environment for use cases where you might be handling payments or displaying sensitive company content on a sign. Of course, everything is managed from the cloud. We have a single pane of glass that I'll show in a moment that just manages everything about how the device behaves. There's no on-prem dependencies. We have customers operating hundreds of thousands of ChromeOS devices in the field, all just controlled from someplace else in the world by a little admin panel in the cloud. And finally, like I mentioned, with ChromeOS Flex, Flex is really designed to be used on anything you want. So with that Advantech offering of thousands of different SKUs and shapes and sizes and tolerances for different types of environments, ChromeOS Flex can really run on any of that and deliver for exactly the type of use case you're trying to work with. And just to kind of highlight where, in a store context, we see a lot of uptake from our customers with ChromeOS. The kind of product navigation, inventory lookup use case has been very, very popular with our customers, especially larger retail type of environments or warehouse environments where a customer might be looking to locate where something is. That's an amazing use for an all-in-one panel machine running ChromeOS. And the same is with our Google Cloud and our ads division. Real-time offers that can leverage camera inputs, environmental data to really entice customers and sort of increase sell margin in retail environments. And then, of course, in the back of house part of a lot of businesses, whether it's corporate digital signage, break rooms, onboarding and training or intern devices, these are all areas where Advantech hardware and ChromeOS is a really fantastic fit. So just to give you a little preview of what the management experience for ChromeOS looks like. Every device, let's say you enrolled an Advantech DS410 into what we call the Google console. Once that's done, you can manage it and you can see it and you can have insights into it from anywhere in the world. So there are over 500 policies you can apply to regulate how the machine behaves. You can look at its temperature, version compliance, how strong its Wi-Fi is. And all of these things can be programmatically accessed via API. So our larger customers who are administering hundreds of thousands of Chrome devices, let's say you have a device that's powering a sign. It's in an environment that is getting too hot. You can use the APIs and all of this data that ChromeOS collects and makes available to you, and you can have proactive reporting that, for example, says this device is getting too hot. It needs to be replaced or placed in a different location. So we really provide all of these tools. They're built in. There's no third-party licensing or anything necessary. So you can really get these insights into what your fleet of hardware is doing. We can also do a lot of proactive alerting. Because it's based in the cloud and it plugs directly into tools like Google Workspace or Splunk or directly into text messaging. You can get those insights in real time when something goes wrong because we know that it's critical with kiosks and signs to be able to have that visibility, to know when something has gone wrong and maybe a device needs to be replaced. And this is all built into the platform as well. And I wanted to go into just a little more depth on the security of ChromeOS. One of the things that we're most proud of is there's never been a verified ransomware attack on ChromeOS. There's no such thing as an executable file because there are security updates that are instant and once a month. It's very easy compared to Windows to keep on top of evolving security threats and hardware issues. There is no such thing as antivirus for ChromeOS. We've actually found that from a security perspective, one of the insights that Google has gained is that sometimes antivirus programs can actually be the way that security breaches occur. So taking out that third-party component that's plugged deeply into the OS, that's something that's really beneficial from a security perspective. And fundamentally, every ChromeOS device is a read-only device. It's almost like an appliance. You can't modify the base OS. If anything goes wrong with a device, it can just be remotely rebooted or wiped, and it goes back to the signed, secured, encrypted state that it was in before. So that's just another layer that makes it very, very difficult to attack ChromeOS from a security perspective, and why we've had zero major security issues to date. And that's running on tens of millions of ChromeOS devices. So like I said, we're really focused on the OS side, and we're really excited to partner with Advantech and show off some of the capabilities that ROS has with the really great specialized use case specific hardware that Advantech makes. So we have customers using with great success the Advantech UTC series in particular. They're wonderful, very robust, very premium, all-in-one touch-enabled devices that are amazing for kiosks, for self-checkout, for product navigation use cases. And like Ryan described, the DS85 and the DS410 are fantastic for any kind of digital signage player type use case. And just to give one really powerful example, for a large European retailer that I will say sells a lot of Swedish meatballs, there are many thousands of devices, Advantech UTC series devices in the field right now today. They're very easy. You can go and see them in any store. They're running ChromeOS Flex. They are running a customer-built, a very slick progressive web application. And it's really used for navigating the stores themselves, locating where in the warehouse things are so that you can pick them up and you can purchase them, showcasing product specs and features. And so it's a very high profile, high visibility use case where when you walk up to one of these machines, if it's got a broken screen or if it's frozen, it's really a very high impact kind of use case and very noticeable for when something goes wrong. So Advantech hardware and ChromeOS were selected by the customer for the sake of reliability. Very high traffic environments, hundreds to, in some cases, thousands of individual user interactions per day. And one of the things that we noticed, these devices were originally deployed running Windows. The customer has actually done some measurements in their stores and has demonstrated conclusively that these devices actually consume considerably less energy when running ChromeOS compared to Windows on the same hardware. And that's kind of because of what I described earlier, which is there's just not as much going on. There's not background services. There's not constant virus scans running. There aren't all sorts of agents on the device doing all sorts of things. So that simplicity, when you're operating at a large global scale, actually really does bring cost savings through minimizing energy consumption. And then to start wrapping up, I wanted to touch on our software ecosystem. If you think of the stack of Advantech is doing a great job making the hardware, Google is providing the operating system layer, then it's a question of what are you running on top of that to provide a kiosk experience or to show content, some sort of content management system. We are really aggressively growing in this space of partnering and verifying and validating a lot of industry standard solutions. So really, whether it's a kiosk experience that's highly bespoke and customized, or whether it's just something like scheduling content using a Signage CMS, we partner with almost all of the biggest players in the industry. And we've done a lot of extensive quality assurance work with them to make sure that their applications run super reliably on ChromeOS. And so we have what we call our Chrome Enterprise Recommended Partnerships Program, and we're adding more and more logos to that every quarter. So to start to wrap up, Google operates at a scale where we're in every market. We'd love to have a conversation about what problems you're trying to solve, how we can potentially help, what combination of Advantech hardware and ChromeOS and partner software we can combine to really address those challenges and problems, and really just do some discovery. We don't charge for anything that we do as far as discovery and validation and education. And we'd be really excited to sit down with you and understand whether you're at the kind of integrator and partner part of the industry or whether you're an end user. We'd love to understand more about your business and figure out how we can help solve your challenges. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Daniel for some questions.
Peter and Ryan, thank you. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm going to have some follow-up of my own because you covered a lot of great ground. We do have a few audience questions here. So it looks like Ravi has asked, where can I find a list of ChromeOS certified hardware?
That is a fantastic question. I'm not super familiar with whether the chat function here will broadcast out to everyone, but let me just paste in. We have a full database on our website that's updated weekly with all the hardware that ChromeOS Flex runs on. That's not to say if it's not on this list, it won't work. Most devices do work, The only real technical requirements for ChromeOS Flex are it needs to be an x86 machine, so no ARM devices or smartphones, and it needs to have at least 16 gigs of onboard storage. So some very old thin clients or stick type signage players might not work, but everything else should work great. And we do add devices to that list on demand. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer this question. Let me see if I can just paste this in here. Daniel, maybe this is something that you can help me paste into the group chat here. That's the link.
Yeah, copy that here. Oops. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to separate my tabs here. And Ravi, I'm actually going to paste this in under your question. So that's a systems redundancy where hopefully everybody's going to see it. And I'll also send this to hosts, panelists, and get the audience as well, if I can. And just so you guys know, this is https support.google.com/answer/11513094 in case you need that as well. Okay. And it looks like we have another question. And attendee has asked, what's the market share for ChromeOS in the digital signage space versus other OSs?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if Gartner or anyone broadcasts or publishes data on that. To be honest, I don't know, and I'm not sure if Ryan, if you have any numbers on what the overall software space looks like, globally.
I don't have that right now, but I can definitely look into it. And if you shoot me an email, I will follow up with you.
And I think we're going to do a follow-up article. So if you guys want to copy me when you get the answer, I'd be happy to include that. It looks like, okay, so Francisco has asked, what is the go-to recommended way to write ChromeOS apps, PWA or Android?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, one of our sister products, we're all in the same organization within Google, is Android. ChromeOS and Android are part of the same family. What we really try to think about is what the use case is. The general recommendation that we have is if it's a small device with a small screen, the user interface elements and the design tools are going to be better on Android. That's really what we engineered Android to do. Likewise, if you're talking to a lot of legacy peripherals, so let's call it cash drawers, certain types of barcode scanners, receipt printers, ChromeOS can run with some of those peripherals, but Android often has much more robust support for those types of point-of-sale accessories. So in that case, Android is going to be superior. Something that Android has challenges with traditionally is updates. So if you're looking for a device with a 3 to 4 year life cycle, Android's great. If you're looking for a 4 year to 10 year life cycle, then ChromeOS is definitely a better choice. So I think it really comes down to what your exact use case is.
Love it, love it. And we just had another question pop in. They're asking, is the current system, both hardware and operating system, capable of generative AI workloads?
Great question. Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. I think right now in the DS410 and DS85, it's not really built for AI workloads, but we do have upcoming products in our digital signage product line that will be more focused on, that generative AI workload. So be on the lookout for new digital signage products from Advantech. And then,
I would say on the software side, it's a function of the sort of melding of hardware and software, right? For light AI workloads, Google has SDKs published and a lot of educational material around executing AI workloads on a web-based platform. And a lot of the digital signage player type hardware actually does have the horsepower to do some simple AI and ML stuff. So maybe it's differentiating people from the background, counting people, attention measurement, identifying features of like age and gender of passersby to gather data about ad impressions. We find that most hardware can actually, with modern ML libraries, actually tackle those types of workloads. If you're talking about things like aggregating multiple high-resolution cameras, that gets a little more specialized, and that's where I think you'll probably see some hardware developments that are aimed at some of those higher-end AI workloads.
Awesome. Very pithy. Now, we have another interesting question, and this is interesting to me personally, because I remember when Chrome OS first started rolling out the early versions. Is there more than one version of Chrome OS? Is the Chrome OS on my kid's Chromebook different from this one on the digital signage?
Wow, what a great question. And the answer may be a little surprising. Is they're actually the exact same code and the exact same OS. So the power of that Google Management Console I was talking about is you can configure a Chrome OS device to be in a school environment and do all the things that a teacher and students need to do, or you can drop it into what's called kiosk mode, which is what 90+% of our customers use for kiosks and digital signage. And that's where there's no login screen, there's no UI, it's just presenting one thing at a time. But fundamentally, it's all running off the same Chrome OS code and same web-based platform. And we're very fortunate that we can use our insights from the hundreds of millions of Chromebooks that students use in schools. We can take all the security and reliability learnings from that world and apply it to this discussion that's a little more relevant to kiosk and digital signage.
Brilliant. And it looks like we've got a question that might be in Ryan's alleyway a little bit. What are some key features of Advantech's hardware that are superior to other competitors?
Good question. So I think in regards to key features of Advantech's hardware versus our other competitors, I wouldn't know if there is a specific key feature that we have over our competitors, but our main thing, right, is us coming from the IPC world, right, industrial long life. That's where our main advantage is, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of digital signage players are just small form factor computers, right? You stick them in a kiosk, you stick them in a small form factor area, and they'll be able to run. So I believe where we stand out versus our competitors is that long life cycle, right? Where we're fanless, you don't have to worry about, I guess, fans gunking up and it being deployed in the field, and you don't have to worry about it going down, right? So I think that's our major key advantage compared to our other competitors in the digital signage applications.
I love that. Peter, did you have anything to add before we proceed?
No, I think that's a great answer.
Beautiful. So we've got two really great questions, because I jotted these down in my notes too, and somebody else thought of them. So one person has asked, do you expect, this is a big one, do you expect generative AI, to gain traction in the signage space? We're going broad.
I'll take a crack at it. It'll be interesting to see what posterity says about this one. I'm probably dating myself and how long I've been in the general technology industry here. But I remember when, not so long ago, there was a time when everybody was going to have 3D printers in their houses. We'd all have one in our garage, and it would make our shoes, and it would make us steaks, and do all these cool things. And 3D printing turned out not to end up in everyone's garage, but it did find a lot of really interesting and useful and valuable use cases. So I know this isn't maybe a super satisfying answer, but I think Google has made a global commitment in a very major way to AI. We know it's going to be huge and it is going to change the world. At the same time, I think it would be wise to assume that some components of AI are probably a little bit overhyped. So I would say in the digital signage space specifically, there's definitely going to be impacts, especially as it comes to customizing the experience. Google's already doing work like improving our real-time translation, so you can speak any language to a kiosk and it can speak any language back to you, for example. But I think it's also really early. Some stuff's going to turn out to be hype, and some things that none of us have thought of yet are going to change the world. That's, I think, probably the best answer I could give.
Yeah, and adding on to what Peter said, I do think there is some hyped applications, right, for AI, and there's, that will die down and they will kind of disappear, because we do also see a lot of inquiries about AI, right? So one of them was with I think an avatar type application, where it's basically giving an avatar to like a chat GPT type AI box, right? Chat box. So you can ask it questions and then it will feed it to you as if you're talking to somebody through this avatar. And it's cool too, like what Peter mentioned, the different languages. It also picks up on the different languages. It'll speak to, it will reply with whatever language you're speaking to it. But again, I think we're still in those early stages, like Peter mentioned.
You both did a fantastic job. I've been covering this in depth for a few months now, so everything they just said is great. And I just sent a link as well to a recent feature that has some cool write-ups. Okay, so we've got several more questions. Is there a support channel? This is Francisco. Is there a support channel for application CMS developers?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I'd be happy, I'm not sure what kind of access we'll have to the folks who attended this, but Google actually has quite a substantially resourced developer relations and partner support team. So whether you are a CMS partner that's developing a CMS that you want to run on ChromeOS, or whether you're trying to improve on a CMS or adapt one that you already have, we have dedicated resources who have extensive computer science and app development backgrounds who can absolutely help with any technical aspect of developing for ChromeOS.
And feel free, Peter, to share that with me for the post story. I'd be happy to send that up. Now, here's a question. This is an interesting one. Okay, so how does the ChromeOS and the digital signage space function in the event of an internet outage? That's from Jackson.
That's a great question. So ChromeOS is based on web standards and what we call progressive web apps, or PWAs. And when people think of the web, they always think of like, well, when the Wi-Fi goes out, the internet stops working. And that's not really true. Web applications and progressive web apps have extensive offline capabilities. They can have entire databases and content libraries that are stored locally on the device. So in the event of an outage, the content keeps playing or the kiosk application keeps being interactive. So it's actually quite easy to build those capabilities in to any web application you're building for the Chrome platform. And again, our developer outreach and support folks would be absolutely happy to help show you how to build those sorts of features.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I think possibly related, we have another person is asking, in Windows, is there, I'm sorry, my dyslexia acted up, I apologize. In Windows, there is a LTSC, long-term service channel version. Does ChromeOS have something similar for long availability support?
That's a great question. At first, it's kind of a funny story. When we first went to market with ChromeOS, we thought it was awesome that we had updates once a month, which it is, especially from a security perspective. But we learned pretty quickly that coping with a once-a-month update cycle is not something that all of our customers needed to or wanted to do. That's a little fast, especially when you're thinking of something that needs to have 24/7, 365 reliability, like a kiosk or a sign in a high visibility environment. So we call it LTS, just long-term stable, and it's released every 6 months. And that's what we use as our long-term stable channel. And there's a whole bunch of other details, but we only put very limited changes into that LTS channel. We do everything very, very carefully. So for uptime critical type of use cases, you're even more protected from any unexpected issues.
Brilliant, brilliant. And it looks like we have time for one more question. This is, ooh, we're getting deep, guys. All right. So someone asked, do you have any case studies that show the actual cost savings or quantifiable outcomes using ChromeOS signage?
Yes, we do. We've done several studies, especially around things like power usage. I don't know if I have time to dig up the study because I know we have limited time. But if you look for ChromeOS PX3, just Google that. That's a UK-based research bureau that's looked at cost savings of ChromeOS versus Windows in the context of CO2 emissions and also power usage. So definitely worth checking that out.
And if you guys get that to me for the post story, we'll get that for readers as well so they can click through. That sounds like a great resource. This is great, guys. There have been so many great questions. This was a speed round, and you performed admirably, I think. I come a long time ago from an education background. I know how hard it is. Any big closing thoughts as we kind of wind down? We're near time.
You want to go first, Ryan?
Sure. I don't think I have any closing thoughts, but really just to thank you guys all for joining us and listening in to our webinar about Advantech and Google, and then I'll hand it off to Peter for any closing thoughts that you may have.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for attending today. A lot of fantastic questions. Google is really excited to, I think, continue some of these conversations. It's been really exciting to see all of the thoughtful questions here today. So we'll make sure in the kind of post-show follow-up that you have a way to reach Advantech and reach Google. And we're really excited to go into a little more depth. And I still see there's some questions we didn't even quite have time to get to here. So we're really excited. Please reach out to us. We're growing extremely quickly in this space. We're making a lot of investments in the broad kiosk and signage world in partnership with folks like Advantech. So we're really excited to continue the conversation.
That's brilliant. Oh my gosh. Well, Ryan and Peter and audience, thank you so much for a very stimulating conversation. This was fantastic. I learned a lot, and that's saying a lot because I cover this for a living at Digital Signage Today. And we will stay tuned for more news from Google and from Advantech.
All righty. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.